Well, Donald Trump has gone north of the border for the G7 up in Canada, and you can feel the fireworks brewing already. All the tariffs, Russia, Israel, and Iran, obviously going after each other. It's classic Trump challenging the global elites.
The G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in. And I would say that was a mistake, because I think you wouldn't have a war right now if you had Russia in. And you wouldn't have a war right now if Trump were president 4 years ago. But it didn't work out that way.
I still love that he refers to himself as in the third person. Well, if Trump was president, I love that so much. So here with more is our DC insider, Chris Bedford. So what are we doing with the G7? Used to be the G8. Now it's the G7. What are we trying to do right now?
We've got a lot to work out right now. We've got what's going on in Europe, obviously, which you saw the president talking about right there. You've got what's going on in Iran. That's an escalating situation, one where the Israelis, since the first shots were fired, have tried to hype up American involvement and American backing. And now in this next stage, either need direct American involvement or to use American bunker buster bombs to be able to actually reach, or even have a chance of reaching, some of their deeper in the mountain nuclear sites and laboratories and the kind of things that are buried deep under rock. And then if some people who are calling for regime change actually get a chance at it, then you're going to end up with the only country in the world that's capable of dealing with that, and another decade or more having to be in a foreign Muslim country rebuilding something. That would be extremely difficult. You know that Israel's not going to lead that effort, and Europe, which makes up a lot of the G7, is not going to have the resources to be able to lead that effort, and China's not going to give a darn. They'll probably bite off some bits around the edges and try to make some money and try to steal, but they don't really care. And well, Russia just signed a deal with Iran. Russia is not necessarily an historically good partner in these treaties. And if they are distracted elsewhere, which they are right now with the full-blown war in Ukraine, then Iran doesn't really have that much to count on, other than maybe, hey, you can send your top officials to Moscow if the regime begins to actually collapse. So there's a lot to discuss. There's also the tariff situation and the president's attempts to remake global trade. But things have really changed in the G7. There's that famous picture from Trump I think it was Trump's first, maybe his second attendance in Europe. We have Chancellor Merkel of Europe leaning over imperiously, or attempting to be imperious. You have the French leaning in as well. And there's Trump just sitting back with his arms crossed, looking self-satisfied and not remotely intimidated. Well, the late, great Shinzo Abe watches on, clearly kind of on Trump's side on whatever discussion was going on in that moment. Back then, you had German chancellors and ministers and Europeans laughing off Trump. This was just some kind of aberration. This was something that wasn't serious, something that really needed to be dealt with. It's a hiccup in America. It's something to be worried about, but it's going to go away. That's obviously not the case anymore. It's clear that people on the mold of the American president are the future, not just here, but in a lot of European countries, which are trying to crack down on that, crack down on free speech, crack down on dissent in order to stop it. And this is something that is a real swinging movement. That's people pushing away from their completely tired ideas. So it puts him in a much stronger position. Now it's just really clear when he walks in, he's not taking people aback when he says, we are the number one player. We hold the most cards in this room. A lot of your roles in this are kind of legacy, post-World War II legacy. And no, it's no longer the case. So that bodes well for the president. And it's just generally, other than that, a big global get-together.
Well, Chris Bedford, 10 years ago today, in a world of political corruption, one man, a real estate mogul, rode down the escalator and into the annals of history. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can believe it, we are sitting here on the decade anniversary, really, of MAGA. So we owe it to ourselves to just stop in the midst of a very heavy, busy news cycle with a lot of very important things going on and think about how the world has changed over the last decade.
I loved that moment. I watched it live in the Daily Colors newsroom back in the day, along with everyone else who watched it live around the world. coming down that golden escalator. There's actually a couple parties going on in Washington, D.C. tonight celebrating that 10th anniversary that maybe younger childless me would probably be at, but is absolutely not on a Monday night this evening. And, there's kind of like a glimpse into the overreadings and the misreadings of the president, the future president that happened that first day. I remember Jeb Bush at this point was the assumptive nominee. He had the most backing. He had all the legacy behind him. He had the money. He had all the people from the failed Romney campaign. He had a lot of people, obviously, from Bush world behind him. And he was someone who was supposed to be the uplifting, compassionate conservative. And then, of course, you had Marco Rubio, who spent some time in the wilderness between this campaign and where he is right now as kind of a leader in this new realignment of global politics. But he was another person who had taken a lot of serious talent and people backing him away from who was going to back President Trump. And I mean, I do remember his early rallies, going to them. The people who ran security and logistics for some of these rallies I went to were either like 6'3" and 120 pounds or 4'8" and 300 pounds. And they all wore mobster pinstripe suits, and they would chase us around like Disney villains trying to catch the reporters as we sneaked in and out, trying to talk to the authentic people and get their view. Then I got chased by one into a bathroom in a high school in Iowa where I just messed up my hair, took off my tie and jacket, and walked right past him. Only person in that bathroom without being recognized, simply by taking off my suit and tie and uncombing my hair. It was a totally different world. And also, I remember thinking when he came down that escalator, he was blasting Neil Young's "Rockin' in the Free World." And a lot has been made of the musical choices that President Trump has, whether it's YMCA or whether it's Tiny Dancer or the other music or songs from Evita or The Phantom. And I heard that YMCA song, that "Rockin' in the Free World" song, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is a dig at Jeb Bush, because that Neil Young wrote that song specifically attacking his father in his first term as office with 1,000 Points of Light for the homeless man. And turns out that wasn't the case at all. Trump just liked it. It's just a song from his iPad that he enjoyed, and all of us goofballs in Washington trying to analyze every single little bit of it, there was nothing there. He just liked the song. And that was kind of a glimpse into how often people would get things wrong over the next couple of years. I remember being shocked. I pretty quickly, when he started to gain steam and gain momentum and do well, I picked up the art of the deal. And I was shocked how many reporters didn't, because it really was an important insight into what this man would become. I started watching the old interviews. I ended up writing the book right after he was elected president, The Art of the Donald, which is a playful kind of like Father's Day gift, by the way, for next year. A playful look at different lessons from America's philosopher in chief, half troll, half joke, but with some serious insights, particularly at the beginning and end, about everything that we got wrong and those few people who try to get it right. And one of my favorite things, just pour one out tonight, pour out a beer for all of the Washington, D.C. minds that absolutely snapped over the next year and never came back. 10 years ago today, the Kochs were an influential force. 10 years ago today, the Bushes were an influential force. 10 years ago today, the Heritage Foundation, before Kevin Roberts, was considered a last name in conservative politics. Cato was influential. AEI was influential. None of that is true anymore. It is completely flipped on its head. The president's flipped that on its head. And how quickly time flies, and how happy we are to have witnessed like the most exciting decade in modern American politics.
Yeah, go ahead and post on X all of the ones that you're going to pour out for the homies. At Chris Bedford, C Bedford DC is technically his handle out there on X. I'm sure that he would love to see it. So while we see MAGA ascending after a decade, you can't say the same for the Democrats, because your Beltway brief opens with this sentence: "The Democrat Party is lost at sea." Now, to me, I love this, Bedford. But why can't they actually seem to get anything figured out right now?
So 10 years ago, around the same time that President Trump was coming down that golden escalator, President Barack Obama was getting heckled in his own White House by illegal immigrants who didn't think that the most liberal president of my lifetime was liberal enough. The person who had given them dreamers, the person who had bypassed Congress, the person who had done everything he possibly could to remake the American markets, remake how you get your health care. remake your interactions with the government, sue the Catholic Church in battles that are literally still ongoing. That person wasn't liberal enough for the coalition that he had brought in. And I remember thinking at the time, Barack Obama is a dynamic, handsome, young, charismatic person who everyone thinks is a great speaker, but no one can actually name one of their favorite lines of his because he just makes you feel good. But that coalition he'd assembled has been completely ungovernable by the people since. And the Democrats thought that they found that lightning in a bottle when President Trump first was elected, and there was mass protests. Remember, the streets of D.C. were filled with those pink-hatted women, foul-mouthed women, nasty women, as their T-shirts would say. But the thing about that is the way they were able to mobilize that many people in Washington, D.C. at the time is these were all the wealthy white women who had booked non-refundable tickets for them and their daughters to come to the inauguration of Hillary Clinton. They booked non-refundable hotel rooms. They booked their friends' private jets. These people were all coming to see Hillary Clinton, so they just came anyways, and protests became their religion for the next couple of years. Then the Democrats were able to whip up race riots and muggings and lootings and crime and spread chaos through the cities, and they thought, well, maybe we can do this again. But it turns out a lot of that actually wasn't them. They're not actually in charge. The American people are tired of it. And they can't change from their ideas. They cannot. A couple people, including Gavin Newsom, before the LA riots, have tried to divert course and change what the Democrats were able to do. And the blowback was insane. But more than that, the people who knew that this was the course Democrats are on was a bad course, they kept quiet. You would get anonymous comments to reporters saying, "Hey, Newsom's doing the right thing. This is crazy." But no one would go on the record, and a million people would go on the record calling him a bigot in the wrong side of history. So he learned his lesson, he changed, and now the Democrats are marching toward this. And their only real hope at this point, when the Republicans are backing something very popular, deportations of illegal alien criminals, and Democrats are not, is to make the Republican position less popular because they can't switch from their position. They can't join it. The way they do that is with confrontation in the hopes of Republican overreach. So you see these incidents. A New Jersey a congresswoman from New Jersey attacking, like very obviously physically shoving federal officers. You see Senator Padilla rushing a press conference in a clearly menacing way, being pushed back, not identifying himself until later. Once pushed back, turning around and returning to the podium. This is not an interruption. We've seen plenty of press conference interruptions. This is an attempt for escalation in the hopes of Republicans overreacting and doing something. The Los Angeles riots, which were backed, we already figured this out very quickly, by billionaire Democrats. Those riots are hoping for overreactions. It sounds sick right now, but it's the kind of thing where these guys pray that a kid gets shot by a cop, that some National Guardsman overreacts and they're not trained for this and they accidentally hurt someone, hit a bystander. They kind of need a Kent State sort of situation here where they can provoke until something goes wrong or some hothead makes a dumb decision. And even the way that congresswomen are talking, like that ridiculous one from the U.S. Virgin Islands who tweeted that more obscene than most rap music tweet about her private parts and their functionality. That's just to provoke reaction. She hopes that someone is going to say something that's stupid and create a news cycle. They need to try and make Republicans look stupid on this or look tyrannical. And so far, it's not working because of the discipline that exists in the administration and elsewhere. But it is a risk, and confrontation is the point.
Well, MAGA is ascending. I don't want to think about any of those tweets that you just named. Block those out of my mind. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think a childless Chris Bedford would go out on the town tonight of all nights, not because he would need a Donald Trump party, but because this would be a pre-party for a birthday.
Oh, yes, that's true. The clock ticks down one more day, one more year, one more circle around the sun tomorrow. And so that means actually, that's a good reminder. I have to send my mother flowers because she did all that work.
She did, absolutely. So Mama Bedford, thank you so much. We are so grateful. We'll see you back here again tomorrow, Chris.
See you then.